Hello everybody, my name is Ann Kendrick. I'm a master gardener and a craftswoman. I am here today to show you the solar lights. It's a yard art flower that I make, and I am going to show you how I go about picking the colors and then perhaps painting them myself. I do some airbrushing on some of the painting, and I will be happy to show you exactly how we get started. What I do is go to thrift shops and to friends sometimes will give me some extra plates or glassware that they have. I use basically bowls and some votive holders occasionally and some platters, and I try to put them together. It was interesting for me to learn how glass will sometimes reflect or refract or sometimes absorb all the light that you try to give it. And I've learned since then what patterns can reflect better, and I try to put those together to show not only a pattern that is pretty in the daylight in your garden, but also one that shows at night and will be totally different. So basically you're going to get two flowers for the price of one. I started off here with this particular bowl, which is refractory, and it's got a patina on it. It's sort of shiny. And this one I'm going to put a blue into it, and we're going to try to see what we can come up with. I'll show you what I do. In the flower itself will be a small landscape light that I put in. In the meantime, since I'm playing around with so many pieces, I'll use this little flashlight to show what the colors will come out to be. I'm going to put, well, you can see here, that's just the blue and the white, and I'm going to add a little bit of green, which will be the yellow and a blue on top of this, and this is what you get here. Now, and you can't necessarily see it from there, but this particular piece has a pattern to it that's going to highlight once you look at it from dead on. Now, if we want to, we can try to see if we put maybe the yellow in it and what that's going to do. And that'll highlight it a little bit more, make it a little bit brighter. The lady that has ordered this particular flower has asked for particular colors, and I like the blue, but that also makes it very dark, and at night they probably won't show quite so much. And I think what I'm going to do is leave it like this and just put the light in here, and that's going to give me a good background here and also show at night a whole lot better. When I get ready to drill, and all my pieces are drilled, there's no glue involved whatsoever, I use a diamond-tipped drill bit and, of course, my good handy portable drill. And I usually put it in this little tub in order, I don't, knock on wood, I haven't had a whole lot of breakage, but occasionally you'll get a tempered one and don't realize it. And I certainly don't want this glass all over my kitchen floor. So I'll put it in this tub, and I put the glass, I've also put a little piece of wood in it as well to keep me from drilling through the hole of the bottom of the pan. When you drill with a drill bit that's a diamond tip, you need to add water so that it can stay cool. So once I get started here, trying to find the center, make a score. Then I will add a little bit of water, and here I can just put it in the basin of the plate and keep it wet just enough to drill through. Once I get it scored and started, then I will come up straight so my hole will be straighter. And I will continue to drill through the center of this plate and the rest of the plates as well, in the same method. And that way you've still got the water here in the basin, and you've gotten it, keeping your drill bit cool. I have laid out most of my tools that I need here. I use a vice grip and a ratchet and a socket. Not sure exactly what these things are called. and I use washers in between the pieces, and I have the landscape light. At the end of the landscape light, there's normally a little nipple that goes on into the post that holds the landscape light in the ground, but I removed that so it will be flush against the glass. And this is our lovely adapter that is made by American Eagle Machine Shop here in town for me. They made it especially so it will be sitting on the back of the flower that you'll see me put it in, and it will hold the flower at a 45-degree angle to catch the sun during the day, so it can light up solar light at night. And what we do is start backwards. I make my own screws out of all thread because I need them to see certain lengths, so I usually make my own. And I'll put it in the front of the landscape light this way, and I will hold it with my trusty friend here, and we go upside down from here on out. We go here. Next thing we know, we probably need to put a little bit of a washer here. Then we'll take the next piece that we got, and it's going to go here with the hole in the middle. It's going to go on next, and I think this one is pretty much set the same width of base that this one is, so I will go without a washer here. Put this one on. These are very tightly fit, these two. I will add another washer here. You don't want to stress your glass at all. It will crack. Then, the next piece. And another washer. And the biggest piece. There we go. And got that one. And we'll put a rubber washer on the outside of that. Let's put this one. And I need a smaller washer. Let me get one more. Oh, thank you. Just a small one with a tiny little hole in it, please, ma'am. My helpers are coming in fantastically helpful here. I don't know what I'd do without them. That's great. We'll put that here. And now we have 2 regular nuts that, it helps to put the adapter on first. That has something to do with it. Put that on here. And we put 1. This is fun when you're working at home by yourself. You chase them all over the floor occasionally. Let's see if we can get this a little bit better. The dog's not very good about picking them up and bringing them back either. She just sits there and watches. Well, that's not going to... Let's try that. And we screw this on. I didn't get this one extremely long. I could have made it a little bit longer. But I think by the time you tighten it, it'll be okay. Usually I put 2 screws in just to hold it and lock it. On the other side, I have a lock nut on the inside of the landscape light. And then these are just regular nuts. And I tighten it with a vice grip. This is a little tricky. It took me a while to learn how. Again, you don't want to stress your glass. So you have to get it tight, just tight enough, but not too tight. And I've broken several of the landscape lights in the cracking those, getting them too tight. I'd rather crack those than the glass. What I didn't mention to you was the fun part about using colors. As I mentioned, I do airbrush them. So occasionally I will want to change a color that might have come with on the glass. Or I'll just take a clear piece of glass and I will color it with airbrush. And that's been a lot of fun.
What kind of paint do you use?
I use a paint that is actually considered a motorcycle paint. And I was surprised to learn that it would adhere to glass. There's a great company in Florida that I deal with who handles this particular paint. And they kept assuring me that it would do great on glass. There's a base paint that I use, and then paint it with the paint. And then after that, it needs to be sealed. So I take it to an automotive shop. Found a very nice gentleman here who will paint it for me and seal it. I tried to seal it at home, but the dog and the bird and I were drunk for 3 days. It's a very strong type of thing, so that didn't work too well. So he was very kind and he helps me out and seals them for me. And then they'll last. The color won't fade, and they've been in. Let's see, I've been using them for almost 6 years now, and the colors have lasted. And I'm really pleased with this paint. It holds very well, and it really is a pretty color. It's got lots of colors, and it just seems to pop. I think I've got this high enough. I usually don't let this turn, so when I turn it over, take this off. This is what you get, and yellow top that goes on the landscape light, and it's just a half a turn, and there's your light. And there's the adapter on the back that sits at the 45-degree angle. We have some in the yard that I'll show you that are already made up and put on stakes that I normally recommend. We just use rebars to put it in. But this is your light, and this is the final finished product. Thank you. I purchase most of my glassware from thrift stores or secondhand shops, anywhere that I can find one on the side of the road. I'll be happy to stop and look and see what they've got. I visit my daughter in Atlanta some, and I have access to those thrift shops up there. And there's several online places that sell from Atlanta, so I talk to those folks as well. So I just pick it up anywhere I can. Several people have donated some items for me, and that's always handy. I appreciate that. When I first started, the colors in this area of the country, we don't have a lot of the blues or a lot of the reds that you see in different parts of the country. And I thought, well, how can I go about finding these things? And I decided I couldn't do a very good job of that, so I thought, well, let's see about painting them. There are several companies and all types of advertisement talking about paint that will work on glass. Not very well. Not very well. It won't adhere well, or it was either an opaque paint, which I don't like. I wanted my paint to be able to see through like a stained glass effort. And I like transparencies, and that's the look that I was going for. And had a lot of trouble finding that. I did come across a French paint called Pibio, and they have a very thick viscous paint that you can pour on, and like a wine glass, and maybe just let it drape over the side, and you'd have this nice little sort of I don't know.
You have a drip.
A drip, yes, the word drip. Yeah, that effect. But it wouldn't cover everything that I wanted to, and there's a lot of waste, and needless to say, expense came into play. So I tried using a brush with it. Could not get the brush strokes out whatsoever. I tried some various additives to it, talking to some art teachers, and they suggested several things. I can't remember. Floetrol or something was one of them. And I never could get the brush strokes out. It just wasn't as pretty as I wanted it to be. And I was going through the internet and trying to just Google glass paint. And this particular store that I was telling you about from Florida came up. They're called Spray Gunner, and they said that paint for any particular reason or whatever you wanted to use for. And I called them, and luckily got the paint expert there. His name was Dylan. And I told him, I said, I'm stupid when it comes to this stuff, and I'm asking for an airbrush for my birthday for my daughter. So I'm trying to do plates and glass, and of course this just threw him out of the ballpark. He said, explain this to me. So we had a meeting of the minds over several weeks and trying to explain things that were going on. I'd send him pictures of what I was doing, and he'd send me something back. And the long and short of it is, he said, I've got a motorcycle paint that'll work. And I said, a what? And he said, a motorcycle paint. And I said, that's for metal and stuff. He said, but if you use a certain additive with it, a base paint, a base coat, then it will adhere. And I said, okay, so let me see about it. He sent me the information. I thought, well, let me try 2 or 3 bottles and I'll see what it does. And I got 2 or 3 that colors that I thought would be great, and the colors popped. It was the PBO. Don't get me wrong; it's a beautiful paint, but the variety of colors that they offered, and the way that it went on, and putting the light with it, they just really stood out like neon. It was amazing, and so then I realized I needed to have them sealed. And they told me, okay, you've got to finish it off. It's got to be sealed. And I said, okay, how do I do this? And he said, well, we've got to seal it. And I said, okay. And he said, I'll send it to you. And I said, okay, do I put it on my brush or airbrush? He said, paint gun. I said, no. I said, brush or airbrush. He said, paint gun. I said, I don't have a paint gun. I don't know anything about paint guns, and I don't know spray guns and all this stuff. And I said, you mean like you do on a fence or sort of, And he said, yep. I said, I don't have one of those. So he suggested that I go find one that was inexpensive and just try to see if I could do it. I did, and like I told you earlier, I'd overcompensated, I think, and the house smelled, it reeked of sealant for days afterwards. Found out right quick I could not do that at home. I had to go find somebody else, and so that's how that came about. And the guy that does it now is doing a really good job of it. But
now, who is that?
Ma'am?
Who is what shop do you take it
I take it to Class Action Auto Shop in Fountain Lake. But I noticed recently that Arteza and several of the other big shops are offering paint for glass. I have not tried those yet, and I don't know quite where they stand. But I think I'm happy with what I've got, and I know that it works, and I've got the routine down and the sealant down, so I'm staying with that. But I want you to know this was the biggest learning curve for me, and trying to figure out what would work and what wouldn't work, and then when it didn't work, how to get it off. Because, paint's paint, and you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do? So then they say, okay, just sand it off. And I'm going, sand off this whole layer of paint that you want me to put on? And the guy said, no, take some reducer that we sent to you. And I said, okay, I've got a little bottle of that. Use a reducer on it, and then use a cleaner. And I said, okay. So and it came right off, not a problem. Before you bake it, if you do that, then it comes right off. So that's been a big relief, because sometimes
what's the baking?
The baking is when they seal it, actually. They call it baking, but it's sealant.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I used their lingo, but they call it baking it, but actually it's a sealant. But the PBO, you did have to did have to bake. And it had a fume, of course. So, and I have a parrot. I had to move the parrot out and go put it in a room and isolate it, or the fumes would bother the parrot. So it was also nice to have somebody that I could actually paint in the house and not bother the bird, and then take it to the sealant place. But don't do the sealant at the house. No way. So, but it really has been a great experience in learning what colors would go with what. They've also suggested now as I mentioned, the chameleon's paint, or the color changing paint, and that's coming very popular. It's becoming very popular in a lot of things.
Did you say chameleon?
Chameleon.
Wow, cool.
It changes colors. They have, I think there's several places online that you can order them. You can either mostly it comes in a powder that you mix with your base paint. I have trouble with that with my airbrush. I tend to get it too thick, I think, and airbrush clogs up. I have found some that is already mixed up and ready to go. And that's been very lucrative, and it's really turned out pretty. And I've started using that on polymer clay.
So what big fails have you had? What big mistakes have you had that you had to learn from?
When I first got the sealant from Spray Gunner, the guy said, go get the paint mixing cups. And I could pick those up at O'Reilly's or, any automotive place. And I did. I got a couple of those, the big sizes and the little sizes, because I had no idea how much it was going to take. And he said, mix it up 2 to 1. And I said, okay, 2 to 1. That's easy to know. I've never mixed paint in one of those paint cans things. Their 2 to 1 is not what I would call a 2 to 1. It's got different levels on them, whatever, but I mixed it up way too strong. And it caused bubbles, it caused pebbles, it caused rocks, and it looked like rocks in it. It just bubbled up like all kinds of crazy things. And I'm going, there's definitely something wrong here. I don't think this is the smooth surface that I want. So that was an experience. And of course, then they told me to sand it all off, and I said, I can't sand this stuff down. And they offered the reducer and the cleaner, which helped out. But learning what colors I could mix together has been fun, but it's been a big learning curve as well. Trying to get the colors just right, and mixing a little bit of the chameleon paint with it has been interesting. With the chameleon paint, or with any of the stuff that you use, the color changing, you need to paint it on a black surface. But that sort of defeats my purpose of wanting to see through my glassware. So what I've done is to use this particular, if I paint say a plate black, and then put the chameleon paint on top, then I use that as a reflective piece. And you get the various colors coming through the front of the surface of the flower, and maybe through the votive part, that thing. So you do get a little bit of back behind it, but you get mostly reflective surface back coming through. And that's been well received. I have also, if any of you are familiar with dichroic glass or dichroic look, it comes in a film a lot of times. It's very much like the film that you used to put on baskets to seal them up. It's kind of not a cellophane type thing, but it's heavier. And it comes in various multicolored combinations together. I took one and wrapped a plate in the dichroic film and took it to Chad and had him seal it front and back for me, and took it to a show just to see how it would be received, and put it in a plate, in a flower. And it was very well received. I could have sold it about 5 or 6 times. But I didn't want to do that until I had taken it outside and let it weather to see if it would actually handle the weather, or would fade, or what would happen. So it's still in the process of being tested. So,
what about the different shapes of your plates and bowls? Obviously you don't want all flat, but how do you figure out the shapes?
Most of what I figure shape-wise is what reflects or what refracts. And there's several patterns, Trish, that Federal has a lot of, like a starburst design. It's almost like it's cut straight out like literally like a starburst. And they will reflect most anything that you put on top of it. If you put a bowl on top of it and then a smaller piece inside, you're going to get it almost back on itself. If you take this starburst design and put something flat in front of it, it's going to go through. And that's just something that I've learned through working with the glass. I didn't know any of this to begin with, so when I'd go to the stores, I'd pick up every wonderful looking piece of glass that they had, because it was just different and pretty and a different size. But it'd get home and it wouldn't work. It just would not work with anything. It would absorb the colors and the light, but it wouldn't show anything. So you're basically defeating your purpose when you've just got one glob of color right there, and you've got several behind it that just don't show up. And I want them to show up at night, especially, because you want it to look different. And it's just something that you just pick up and you learn that certain things will work. There's like a hobnail look. You've seen those. And they work well if you've got something tall behind it. For instance, you may have a little hobnail votive holder and then a tall bowl behind it, and it will reflect the bowl, whatever color you have on that bowl, and just a different look. Then you just learn what's going to work with what. And that's just, I guess, learning, just working with it. That's all I can tell you, because I sure didn't know all this. But it's been an experience, and it's been a lot of fun. It has been, so. But I'm glad that it has been received well, and I'm glad that they last. So far, I haven't had anybody complain about a break. I do recommend you don't put them in, under a tree, because the limbs get it. And I do tell people that if they're moving, actually this did happen. A lady up in Greenbrier moved, and her landscape light broke off. And I just talked to her over the phone and told her how to replace that. But I tell folks that if they purchase a piece, and if they're moving or something, and maybe the middle plate may break or somehow or other in transit, if they can send me a picture, then I'll replace that piece at what it cost me. Just to have it continue on. There's no sense in spending the money on something and have just one little piece break and then you've ruined it. When you can replace it easily, it's not hard to do. I send a little piece of information sheet with every flower that I make with people, letting them know you don't have to take the whole flower apart to change your light out. All you do is just change the cap off, go buy a new light and just change the cap off, and that's it. So many of the guys want to take the flower apart. And how do I get this apart? You don't need to. Well, I need to take it apart. No, you don't need to ever take the flower apart. So a lot of it's just not knowing, and I try to give them the information sheet so they'll know what to do when they get home. So. And of course, I've got my email address anywhere. They're always welcome to contact me and ask any questions. So. And I'll answer anything I can. Some of them I don't know, but I'll go find somebody who does. So.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.